So the seed of my idea started 6 years ago, maybe seven, um, before I went to prison, but when I was in the legal trouble. And I had read a manga called So I'm a Spider, So What? And this manga features a girl who reincarnates into a magical world as a little baby spider. She reincarnates in a very dangerous dungeon and has to figure out her way out how to survive. Thing is, this world has skills, and she had like a heads up display thing, or at least a window that showed her skills. Um, and these skills progress by discovery and exposure. And so she could develop like poison resistance by being poisoned by enemies. And later, when she goes into the fire cave, she develops fire resistance. Spiders are actually weak against fire. So what she has to do is just hang out in this fire cave for as long as she can and almost die and then retreat and heal up and then slowly build up her fire resistance so enough that her natural regeneration can keep up with the fire damage. And I was like, man, I really like this skill progression system. Kind of reminded me of like Morrowind uh, in the Elder Scrolls games where you would get stronger by like you can train your heavy armor by getting hit by a mud crab. Later in prison, I played a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons. Every time I went to a new wing, I would find people to play with. And I tried to come up with a way to make this skill progression system work in Dungeons and Dragons. The thing is, it would take a lot of paper and a lot of tracking. It just really wasn't feasible. To level up fire, you would level up a fire spell by casting it. So that means that every single time you cast any kind of fire magic, you would have to track it. Anytime you got hit, you track it. Anytime you hit somebody with a sword, you track it. It's just way too much tracking. Not really feasible with a tabletop RPG. But maybe if you had a cell phone, I thought to myself. And at the same time, I was learning programming, but not really for this reason. I had already decided I wanted to make video games. Fast forward, I get out of prison. I've decided to dedicate myself to becoming a game developer to finally do something that would make me happy because I've never made that choice ever in my life. Um, and I decided to enroll in Dallas College. The reason is because I was trying to do it on my own to make myself learn, but I just wasn't. Um, I needed a push. Dallas College was that push. I signed up for the game design certificate because it was the easiest way to get financial aid without actually having to go for a full associate's. Just 1 year, uh, 24 hours of classes, I think. And so I signed up for the classes that you have to take for that certificate. Two of the classes are good. One of the classes was a complete and utter waste of time, basically video game history. 15-minute videos once a week, 12, 10-minute, 5-minute videos once a week about some general level, surface level history of video games. Really just awful. The only interesting thing about this class is they wanted me to, the final project was making a game design document. It's really three different projects. First project was an elevator pitch. So just a really quick, like, hey, I have this idea for a game. That was not this game. That was a mobile version of this game, but like Pokemon Go meets Dungeons and Dragons meets skill progression system. I still want to make that, but it's gonna be hard. Um, the second version was more like a investor proposal document. We called it a game design document, but it was more of an investor design document. And that's where I came up with the idea of the eternal descent. So I told AI, I was talking to Claude, and I said, hey, I want to make a game that's like, has a skill progression system like So I'm a Spider, So What, or Dragon Hatchling. I want to build it in Unreal, and I want it to be, yeah, let's see, how did I do this? Yeah. So I told it, basically I wanted to build it in Unreal, and I asked it to ask me a bunch of questions. Yes. So I want to create a game design document for it. So I want the, this game to be a game that's going to help me learn skills necessary to build my dream game. The dream game would be a game like Kenshi or Mountain Blade. We're dropped into a deeply simulated world and it's up to you to choose your direction. I want it to have a skill leveling system like uh, So I'm a Spider, So What, or Dragon Hatchling manga. But the game needs to be tiny. This needs to be a game that teaches me the skills that will lead to the dream game. Told it to ask me some questions, and it did. It asked me really good questions like, "What's the vibe of the world?" And gave me like multiple choice answers plus like a fill in your own blank if you want to. Uh, I don't know if you've ever had Claude ask you questions. I'm sure you have. It just brings up a little window, and you click on it, answers or type stuff in. But then it's like, how tiny is your tiny? What's the perspective? Like core. Ask me questions about the core systems, like how's combat going to work? What is the one system that you deeply want to learn about? And I said skill progression system. And then it took the questions I gave it and built me a game design document. Uh, but it wasn't everything I needed for the assignment. The teacher also wanted a budget and images of the games that inspired me. Well, AI delivered images. And then it asked me some questions about what did we need to build a budget? Like who's building it? Me. What's expected development time in 3 months? Uh, what's the realistic budget range? And I said, what is the professor expecting? I said, professor is expecting shit because he puts zero effort into his class, so we can put basically minimum effort into this. But I want to actually do something, so I could probably spend about $500. And so I built the second version, which is this thing, and it couldn't put the pictures in, but it gave me links and I just threw them in there. It actually found the pictures on Steam. Good job, AI. I didn't even tell it about Hades or Dark Souls. I think I might have mentioned Dark Souls, but I said roguelike, so it went with Hades. And I said, um, and it thought my magic system was going to be hardcore like NOLA, but that's kind of on a whole nother level. And then it gave me a budget, um, which is pretty on point, like using Unreal Engine, Blender, Audacity, like just free tools. We're gonna get as many things for free as possible, and then spend money where we need to. And then did the concept, design goals, learning objectives. So really, kind of like it's more like a project proposal than a game design document. I then took this and I talked to, I believe it's Gemini. No, dang it! Don't close it yet. I'm gonna pause this. Right? Can I scroll? Okay. Yeah. So, damn it, stop it. And then I talked to, uh, is it Gemini? Is there a way to tell? Yeah. Oh, this is GPT. Okay. Well, I don't know. Whatever Copilot was using at the time. And I asked it like, what makes a good game design document? And it gave me all this information. And this is the minimum template. It was like, okay, take this document, the Eternal Descent proposal document, and let's make it into a game design document. Like, and what do I need to change and add to make this a good game design document? And so it gave me some feedback. I told it the things it needed to know. Okay, I said, based on the document I gave you, can you build me a game design document, including anything you're confident in, highlight areas you're not confident in, and leave room for me to expand. Put parentheses around questions I need to answer. But first, is there any more information you need out of me to make this? And so it asked me some questions. I always like asking AI to ask me the questions. I answered the questions. And then it asked me more questions, and then I answered the questions. And then it created the document. And then I said, hey, let's go over the document because it was really kind of more of a template. It had a lot of placeholder stuff, a lot of unanswered questions. I'm like, okay, let's go over the core areas section by section and answer those questions. That's it. Like I told it to make my elevator pitch and stuff, but then where is the core design? All right, core concept. What is going on here? Let's flesh out the core concept. And then anytime I felt like it was off or I needed to guide it, I gave it more information. And and I kept doing this for the core concept and then core gameplay loop, then how the combat system would work. This became much more of a top level game design document, like the idea of the game, the feel, the heart, the soul of the game. Like this is would be a guiding more of a guiding document for actually building a game, more of a good onboarding. Like the first document was selling the idea to somebody else. This was once someone's on the team, how to get them to have the same vision of what the game's going to be. Then I went to uh, turn that in. That was that assignment, that final project. But I intended to make that for the summer. So then I went to back to Claude and I switched it to Opus. And I don't know why I keep bringing that. And I told Opus, hey, can you read these two documents for me? Can you read them? If you can, if you can't, stop and let me know. But if you can, I want you to be my partner on a summer project. We are in pre-production. What all do we need to think about before we start building this game? So I gave it the two documents. That way it would have a general idea of what this game is, the feel for it. And then I asked it to think about stuff, and it did. Um, it kind of got the orders wrong. I guess it saw V1 and V2. And so I thought the older document was newer and the newer document was older because they had different V numbers on them. Uh, but it still understood basically what was going on. It had some concerns about scope, about feasibility. It thought that me building a physics-based damage uh, combat system would be hard for me. I still don't think it will be. Unreal has good ways to track vectors, and if I can know a vector, the way a vector interacts with the surface, I can know physics. Like mass is easy in Unreal, velocity is easy in Unreal. Yeah, it shouldn't be hard. And plus, it would only be like the skill system is 50% physics, 50% skill damage, depending. If your skills are high but you're swinging slowly, then it's going to be mostly uh, skill system damage. Anyways, so it highlights these issues within the document, areas that weren't fully thought out. Like I said, I want to do procedurally generated dungeons, and it was like can be a lot of work. Like it said, building handcrafted rooms and stitching them together is not that hard, while building a truly random thing can take months. Um, and so, I talked to it more about the scope of the game. And then I said, yeah, this is just a learning project. And I told it that we need to build, since we're doing this early, we need to build the base systems with expansion in mind. So we can't just build a system that takes care of the problem as it is right now. We have to build a system that takes care of the problem as it is right now, but is expandable to take care of any future problems. Specifically, the skill system. The game we're going to be working on will only have a handful of skills, but the game that system that we're engineering will have hundreds, thousands of skills. We need to make a system robust enough to be able to expand outwards into those systems without breaking what we already have. That means we need to think about the big picture before we build the small thing. And so it goes through, helps me think about it, and then it comes up completely on its own with a system of uh, transmitting information and other actors components listening to that transmission and grabbing the data it needs out of the event transmissions and ignoring everything else and quietly tracking it, and then other things like the combat system, our magic system, will be listening for what they say and will take the variables out of them, and like damage will change and skills will activate without having to do much of anything at all. So like you swing a sword, that sword event, uh, or you swing a sword at a goblin. That event, when it hits, declares, sword hit, goblin got hit, damage type, damage amount, stuff like that. And then all these other things, these skill listeners will be listening, like your sword skill will be listening for you swung a sword, and it will uptick. And then once all that goes, if your sword skill levels up, the combat skill, or the actual damaging component or asset thing, will be getting its variables from the sword thing, so it'll just automatically update. So when your sword skill upticks, that variable will change within the damage formula. So this system that it's largely responsible for, there's some things that I was like, okay, how's that going to work? I had it explained to me how much like processing all that will take, and it's like if we didn't build it smart, it won't take much at all. I'm like, great. Um, and then we thought really hard about like what skills are going to be in the game, like what's the full scope of the thousands of skills, and what's the minimum number of events, the minimum language that we can have that will cover thousands of skills. So like fire damage will cover every time any kind of spell fire. So we came up with eventually we focused in on a tag system. So there'll be like a damage type and then tags. And so it could be damage type slashing. And so if a holy fire sword hits, it'd be fire, holy, and slashing. So 3 tags. And then the listeners will listen for the tag that they care about. The sword skill will listen to slashing. The magic skills will listen to um, fire and holy, and then the fucking morality skill will listen to holy. It could be dark. Anime loves dark shit or holy shit. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.